Hey everyone, Tyler here at The Movie Beat, back with another video about The Call 2020 film on Netflix. This is turning into a little bit of a series. So my first video was just my reaction and initial review, and then I have sort of my ending explained video, which I think is my favorite way to interpret the ending. Of course, there are many different ways, apparently, that we can look at this ending. So that is one that I think is maybe the best way for me to digest this film. And then I have another video about some of the things that helped me come to those conclusions with the evolving nature of the home. But in this video, I still feel like there are quite a few unanswered questions in this film, some logical inconsistencies, and just a few things that do not add up for whatever reason. And we can speculate about that in this video. So the first thing specifically that I want to talk about that does not make a lot of sense clearly to me, and hopefully we can get to the bottom of this, is the tombstone in the graveyard. So let's just start. Okay, guys, there's a lot of spoilers in this video, so be warned there. The tombstone that Soyeon visits on the anniversary of her father's death towards the beginning of the film does have a death date of November 27th, 1999. And that is the same day that 1999, the villain of this film, Young-suk, does her magic and changes the fateful gas fire explosion that was supposed to kill him. So he suddenly reappears on that day for adult Soyeon, who's in that house right now, her abandoned kind of rundown house that beautifully turns into the family home. Father's there, mother's there, she's there, her hair gets longer, everybody's happy. So that was on November 27th. So continuing with the tombstone at the end of the film, we are on the date in the film, December 31st. And so when the father actually does seem to disappear in 2019, it is on the date December 31st. So that would correspond to December 31st, 1999, when 1999, our villain, Young-suk, does kill Soyeon's father when he and young Soyeon are visiting the home. They're supposed to be doing kind of a real estate tour. They're checking out the house. And that's when younger Young-suk kills her father and he disappears in 2019. So you would think that his death day would change to December 31st, 1999. However, at the end of the film, when Soyeon is running around trying to figure out what's going on, when she goes to the graveyard at that point, the tombstone actually says the death date is December 11th. Okay, so let's just speculate here. Could there be a kind of error? Did the filmmakers make an error? Well, that is always a possibility because, you know, even in some of the biggest films, you'll find like a car that wasn't supposed to be made at that time or a gun model that wasn't made at that time. You know, filmmakers can get things wrong, but in a movie where timeline is so important, it would really blow my mind to have made a mistake here. So showing the close-up of the date and everything, they could have changed that in editing, even if they knew it was wrong. It's got to be somewhat important. And whether we'll know eventually in a sequel, whether we can be sure just from this film, I don't know. I want to throw that back out at you. But one of my hypotheses that I cannot say with definitely or not, but the part in this film that 1999 Young-suk calls Soyeon to tell her like that truth that she wasn't sure whether or not she wanted to tell her or not, and she'd been debating, but she's going to tell her that the past, all of that terrible relationship that Soyeon had built up with her mother was not real, and that she believes that Soyeon is a pathological liar, and she is actually responsible for her father's death, not her mother leaving the gas stove on. And this could be looked at a couple different ways. On one aspect, I kind of look at this as planting a false memory into Soyeon's mind, and whether or not reality changes after that. Does that change the past? I don't know. Or could this have changed history in some way, that instead of on November 27th, you know, some week or so later, about 2 weeks later that Soyeon, as a young Soyeon in 1999, did do this thing with the gas stove. And is that the timeline that this tombstone is reflecting, that she actually killed her father? That could be the filmmaker's intention, that the ending timeline of this movie, where we ended right before she's in that chair covered in the white tarp, that could be what the filmmakers intended, that Soyeon actually killed her father on December 11th. So that is one thing that I think is still unanswered, and I kind of want to throw that back out there. Let's get to the life-saving phone call. That's a little bit of a logical inconsistency. The phone rings pretty much right after the house transforms from the dilapidated, abandoned house that transforms after the father is murdered in 2019. So it turns into the killer's murder home, and the call comes in, and it is picked up by apparently an uncaught future 2019 Young-suk, because she just got the information about where the knife was, so she wasn't caught. So she picks up the phone at that moment to warn of something, of the mother and the policeman coming over, that there was a potential fatal encounter there. So that is the moment that we do see in the credit sequence that somehow helped her stay alive. And when she does fall over the railing, that is January 1st, 2020, because we do see on the TV the New Year's countdown and everything. So we are in 2020 now, when the 2020 Young-suk disappears, or reality changes right before she is about to kill Soyeon. So we have to assume the disappearing aspect of this movie means somebody died. Now, her disappearing after the younger Young-suk falls over the railing, is that indicative of a death? Or, well, my question is, does disappearing in 2020 mean you died at that moment in 1999 or 2000 at this point? And I don't think that necessarily has to be. I think that she could have disappeared because she no longer exists in 2020, but she did not necessarily die in 1999. So she could have still lived and died some other time, at least lived long enough to kill Soyeon's mother, which would, explain how she disappeared there. But that aspect of her disappearing in 2020, I think a lot of people are saying, how could she still be alive at that point? She must have died. She couldn't have done that. Well, does disappearing in 2020 mean that you died in 1990 and 2000? Maybe she could have died in 2008, 2010, and she wouldn't be alive in 2020. So that is, I think, an open question. One other thing I wanted to throw out as a question to everybody is, what did you think of that store clerk, the convenience store clerk that sold the gummy bears to Young-suk? Because when the shaman mother does go there and visit her, it looks like she is now suffering with that burned leg instead of Soyeon, because originally it was Soyeon that had the burn on her leg, and then it was the store clerk, and then later, once the young Soyeon got the hot oil poured on her, the burn type of thing came back. So what do you guys think? Is that like trying to say that every action has some sort of a equal reaction somewhere else? Like, if I'm no longer burned and dead in a fire, someone else is going to be burned and dead in a fire? What were they saying there specifically? I might have missed something. So please let me know if you guys have any comments about that store clerk, the kind of friend that hooked Young-suk up with gummy bears. All right, so the other aspect of this film that I don't think a lot of people are talking about, but might have some ways that we can bend the logic a little bit, because we are getting into the mystical realm, and that has to do a lot with Young-suk's kind of full-blown shaman mother, who at one point when she has Young-suk on the ground and she gets those visions, those premonitions, and they are things from Young-suk's future, and she does see that this girl is going to grow up to be a murderous monster, and that's why she wants to excise those demons that would end up killing her from the information that Soyeon delivers to her. So when the shaman mother fails to kill Young-suk, she does admit to Young-suk that she sees multiple deaths in her future. So the fact that she saw those visions in the first place let's start bending into that magical realm. We have to suspend our logic a little bit for this. And when she says multiple deaths are in her future, well, that means she could have died when she fell over that railing in 1999. So it kind of throws out a lot of people's argument that, because she died, she has to be gone. Well, apparently we got some magic going on here. So she could have multiple deaths. This looks like she did die. So that could explain why she disappeared in 2020 on January 1st, right before she killed Soyeon. But she has multiple deaths, so that means she can come back to life for another death later. So that kind of magically explains whether that's a filmmaker's trick. It seems like it works into the logic of the film because we are dealing in that mystical realm. Okay, and let's get to the mother showing up in the graveyard. We have to assume that in the 1999 timeline, somehow the mother and daughter survived, based on what we're witnessing in this scene. And you can see the scars on the mother's hand and the mother's neck. Now, the interesting thing about the neck scar is the filmmakers made a choice to show us a close-up shot of older Young-suk in the murderer's house when she's sitting at the table, a close-up of her neck, and she also has a scar right there. So, what are they saying about Soyeon's mother and older Young-suk being this future kind of tormenting type mother based on the ending in this one? Are they kind of the same character? That's when sort of the crazy theory of Soyeon starts to take some ground, I think. But that's something to think about, that, if there is a mental problem here, which, her mother, Soyeon's apparent real mother, is having a brain tumor. So let's consider those options as well. I think that's what makes this movie so fun. Lots of potential options here. But I always want to remember that when I'm watching a film, especially a thriller film, twists are inevitable, and especially South Korean movies, I think a lot of filmmakers like to throw in just one little extra thing to keep people talking, little noise marketing, if you will. And whether or not the end thing is logical or not, it's there to make us talk about it. So if I was the filmmaker and I wanted to present two possible endings, kind of like an Inception, leave it up to debate, I can show the happy, hopeful ending and show that the mother was there, and wow, these girls are going to have the story. It's kind of a reuniting of mother and daughter who started out this film at a very rocky place, and it ended on a point that, wow, they have this crazy backstory and more of a bond moving forward. So that's a very nice ending. However, if we want to go the route that the bad, scary, evil ending that's going to make everyone feel bad, we're going back into that magic world where Young-suk has multiple deaths in her future, and this is one of them. So in 1999, that she was able to survive this or come back from the dead to hunt down and kill Soyeon's mother, that would explain her mother flickering away and disappearing, and then eventually that reality have changed because Soyeon no longer has a mother now, and she is being kept as a prisoner in Young-suk's home, in that the big family mansion home. So that's the whole reversal of roles, and now that's when I kind of think more about the scars and the different, the mother entities and all of that in this film. So lots to think about, whether or not this makes sense logically or not. That's kind of why I wanted to put this all in this video, just stuff that isn't quite adding up. So that is definitely a possibility that the filmmakers do not want a definitive answer and just kind of want to keep the discussion going. I'm doing exactly what they want, apparently, if that is the reason. So maybe we can get to the bottom of it. I don't know if I'm going to be making more of these videos, but I'm just enjoying this movie right now. I'm still waiting on other future releases so I can stay on this video, can rewatch it a couple more times and really get that final opinion on how I want to see this. And I think that's what's so beautiful about it, that really some of the best films, we can all interpret them a little bit differently, I think. At least the best for me. I don't like it having a period that this is how it is, no matter what you believe, no matter the way that you think, that is the film. I don't really like that style as much. I like it more like this, where it could be all of these things. And that's what makes movies much bigger, in my opinion, than others that are just so period, that's the movie. This is like 10 movies now instead of one. So again, thanks everybody for continuing this discussion, and hopefully we can get to the bottom of it. If you guys enjoy this content, please let me know by liking and subscribing and communicating in the comments below with more about The Call on Netflix. Go see it again. Why not? This is an awesome movie. Until next time, I'm Tyler at The Movie Beat. Keep watching movies.